Connecting. Buenas noches, Toblerone.
All the way here from Port Townsend, Washington, to God knows where you are, Nat Geo style. It's good to see you again, Jill. Buenos noches.
Buenas noches. Good to see you. We are broadcasting. We're live from the Sacred Valley of Peru. We're in one of the villages in the Sacred Valley on the way to Machu Picchu. I mispronounce it. What is it? Urubamba?
Yeah.
Urumba?
Arumba bumba.
Yeah, I'm terrible. But we're in Peru.
Yeah, I can tell by the bed rest there, the headboard, the
You,
thatch
yes,
work.
it's very.
Now, is that in the theme of the llama, the alpaca? Do I see like a long neck? It looks like it might be a design.
It's some very
Yeah.
abstract llama art, alpaca art here. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just more of a and repeat type design,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but Tobe, I'll tell you what, there's been no shortage of alpaca sightings. My Facebook feed has been blown up with all my baby alpaca interactions and wild alpaca interactions on the road. Grumpy ones that are like, "Why are you shoving a camera in my face?" And then there's the little baby alpaca at the villa that we're staying at that just kind of looks at me like, my disdain for you grows every time you shove your iPhone in my face. I
There.
still pet it and just smother it in attention.
I mean, these are like functioning animals that do a job. Most of the alpacas we see around here are confined to a petting zoo situation. So is the temperament the same when you're domesticated compared to like an actual working animal?
Well, the adults that we ran into were just kind of grazing and looking at us scornfully. The baby one was with an Incan woman of traditional like Peruvian dress and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and I think it's kind of like a carnival thing where we use the baby alpaca to lure you in, like, oh, look at this
Oh,
cute little
yeah,
thing. Oh, look at our fine weavings
yeah.
of baby alpaca fur, and it's all beautiful. So I appreciate all of it. It's all beautiful, but I'm just here for the baby alpaca.
Well, and I think you're going to walk away with more than that. You guys are there working. I would imagine you've seen some pretty interesting stuff. Oh, there we go. A face mother and father could love. And
That's Jesco. That's the name of the baby alpaca, and here where we're staying. That's little baby Jesco, 3 months old, exhausted from being loved all day. They take great care of him, so don't be calling PETA or anything like that. It's a very
oh,
well cared for little baby. Doggone it, the softest, fluffiest thing you've ever encountered. It's like a Muppet. It's like a Muppet like creature.
yeah, that spectacular brow ridge there. It's right out of.
The scornful gaze
Well,
is just, yeah.
yeah, that's amazing.
So okay, so I guess we're doing the Brett Eichenberger Peruvian slideshow.
You guys, you should be able to hear me from the background. I'm just showing a couple of quick shots from Peru here. Obviously, this is a woman. Everybody, all the women wear these hats that were left over from the British railway workers. Obviously, new hats, but the
It's
British
a
railway
style,
workers showed
yeah.
up in the 1920s and they kind of left their hats behind, and so they adopted style, and so that's why they wore these kind of strange top hats. This is where we spent the night last night.
Yeah,
Literally,
you guys.
this is a kind of a close up shot, but if you were to fall out of one of these, you're gonna fall
To your
a
death.
few thousand feet.
To your death.
And this is the view from outside of one of those pods. Obviously, these are these mountains that we're in right now. We're currently broadcasting from 9,500 feet and yeah, it's pretty.
This was 11. This was 11,000 plus though.
11,000
We're
plus.
right now we're at a much lower.
This
range.
particular mountain, which I can't remember the name of, is
Nevada.
something Nevada. It's the 6th highest mountain in North America or South America. And then we went to these salt mines. These salt mines have been used virtually since civilization started. These salt mines go back like 6,000 years. 6,000 years. These were there long before the Incas showed up. The Incas were relatively recent, within the last 500-600 years. And then last but not least,
oh, my favorite.
This is a way that they were able to test certain ideas in farming, and it creates different microcultures. So if you go from the top to the bottom, each one of these rings represents a difference in 3 to 4 degrees. And then what they would also do with this, serve dual purposes, they would fill it with water and gradually fill these rings with water, and they would use the water in its supreme stillness to do astronomy.
Yeah, so because like it'd be like a flat, plane of water, and it would act as like magnify the stars above. So that's how they would study the stars. And you can see in this photo, like the little, it looks like up to the left, a square there. That's like where the shaman lived, who was like knowledgeable about all the astronomy and whatnot, and could predict the seasons and weather and crops and whatnot.
Yeah, the Incas were so incredible in their engineering.
So on top of it.
Really have to kind of wonder where they all this intelligence.
And not only that, but like, okay, so just here's a weird trivia piece for all you Flash of Beauty listeners. File this away, as Arla Williams would say. File this away. So in Peru, in this region alone, there was like 6,000 different types of potatoes.
12.
Okay, was it okay for the region? But they had 12,000 different types of potatoes, and we're just like, oh, okay, that's who's counting after the first dozen thousand. But let me tell you,
Doug Botch used to raise alpacas.
Doug, we need to talk.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, we were in the market today, and the potato section was insane. We're just like, wait, what? It was a plethora, a utopia of potatoes.
Amazing.
So,
and then last but not least, we don't know much about this. We're trying to find out more, but this is basically
yeah.
Mapinguari, the Mapinguari or whatever. And I don't know if you can see it on the live stream or not, but the dude is a cyclist.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, he's actually, and then his stomach will kind of open or something, they say. But
Totally normal.
a lot of the descriptions obviously keep it in kind of the same camp as a Bigfoot. And what they supposedly do to protect the woods and the forests, much like the Bigfoot.
Sounds familiar.
So we haven't had a chance, buddy, and this is more kind of quasi vacation than anything else. But we are doing our research as much as possible. And we can tell you that we did somebody who had a sighting as a child
along the river.
But what's really interesting, you guys, is there's a thing down here called the speckled bear, the Indian speckled bear, which is where it's based off of. And they're kind of gentle, quiet, shy. And you can look this up online. This is really funny. When they stand on their hind legs, it looks like a guy in a cheap bear costume. It's hilarious. I mean, it literally looks like a guy, like a baggy costume that doesn't fit in. So
it's like a Temu bear costume.
Yeah, it's like a Amazon
Hey, don't knock it.
for Halloween. So a lot of the sightings could be that bear. It could be the speckled bear. But there are some people, if you do the research, that swear that what they saw was not a bear.
Yeah.
How many times have we heard that?
Yeah.
So
But
that's a quick
also,
tour of
just
Peru.
yeah, and just to add on that, so we did speak with someone who when we brought up, like, are there any cryptids down here that you can tell us about? He's like, well, yeah, because we were talking about Bigfoot, and he's like, yeah, we didn't catch the name, the pronunciation. I will butcher it, but it's like, oh, the blah 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 blah. He's like, yeah, as a kid, I had a sighting, and other people saw it too. It wasn't just me. And he's like, yeah, it's down by the river and whatnot. Everyone saw it. But they were also talking about a water spirit, a water cryptid, basically a mermaid, a type water spirit
Mer
that
person, Jill.
a mer person. Okay, I didn't mean to
Go ahead.
categorize
Right.
it. I apologize to our audience. Per person scripted, but that's the thing down here. But we've also, like, in a flash of beauty, some of the indigenous people up in the Oregon, California region have talked about the same thing. Like, yeah, there are the water people spirits that make themselves known. Same thing here, and it's the river that goes through the Sacred Valley. Its representation is the snake, because it's kind of it curves.
Okay.
And it's like a sacred river, and the valley itself. There's just so many elements. Oh, and also, like, on Facebook, if any of you are on Facebook and have seen my photos I've been posting, the mountain peak that we were looking at from our weird little capsule hanging off the cliff, the owner was like, yeah, the UFOs, the lights, they come out from that mountain, and it's a spectacular light. The minute you look at them and you acknowledge, like, you're like, oh, look at that. Do you see that? It's almost like they become aware. They're like, yeah, they, once you acknowledge them and they become aware, disappear. But he's like, yeah, the lights come out. So I'll be honest, that night we spent there, I was just looking out the window, staring at the mountain, waiting
Right.
for them to show up.
They're here.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, the idea that these things are conscious based seems to be the way everything's leaning. And the locals said it first. I mean, you're 9,000 feet, flirting with 11,000 feet. You're closer to God. You're probably going to see these things more readily. I imagine the skies have opened up for you with an all new type of blue. Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the night sky has got to be crazy when you're in Inca country, right?
It's intense. And it's even where we were staying, the resort, this is his land, like, going back like centuries. And he's just pointing across the valley. He's like, oh, over there, you see that looks like kind of rock slide area? Yeah. He's like, well, that's where we were mining the stones, like 600-700 years ago, and we're bringing it down to build stuff. And it's just like, and it's just very matter of fact, like, yeah, people would die on the job, and that's where we bury them, and that's why you find the mummies up there. Just everything's so matter of fact, because they were such believers in reincarnation. And they're like, time was different for us, because we knew everyone reincarnate, so it didn't matter how long it took to get the job done. And it was really interesting. Our guide, who was explaining all this to us, is like, the way the Incas worked and the way we were able to accomplish so much, like, vast accomplishments, these buildings and the mass construction,
Megalithic blocks. Yeah.
he's like, together, it's like we shared information. It was they had a unified vision. He's like, we didn't have slave labor. We were all working together for, it was like, I don't know, the Incan Union speak, but without the fees, kind of, they really, no, but really, he's like, everyone was working together. There was a unified vision of what we were trying to accomplish. accomplished. Everyone is all in, all sharing information. It was so important. The whole idea of you show up, you learn from the people ahead of you, you do work, and then when you're older, you pass it on, you teach. So you're teaching to the people who are working, who are, passing to the people who are learning. Yeah. So
just so the audience knows, I've been on this call with Brett and Jill, but mainly Jill for the last hour, and she's been on fire since the get. So this trip has affected you in a way that, are you surprised? Because like you're like half Peruvian now. Like this is a place I picture you coming back to relatively soon. It's going to be hard for you to adapt and come back to sea level and hang out with the normies.
I'll be completely honest. So, and I don't talk about this much. So, like when you get into genealogy, on my mother's side, my mother's father's
Anakin
ancestry, they came up through Mexico,
right,
in the mid 1700s. But when you do my genealogy or my like DNA genetic things, there's from South America. So okay, you just kind of file that away. But
I
like,
could tell.
I'll tell you what, down here, you visit places and you like, oh, I feel at home here.
Well,
I resonate with Peru.
it makes
like,
sense because when
I feel it.
when we went to the Sierras and we're at 9,000 feet, 6 to 9,000 feet, just so people know, this girl was not winded in a way that was unusual. Because I mean, even David Johnson, who we were with, was a little bit winded, but there was, and Brett, I mean, you can chime into this. Like there seemed to be an acclimation to altitude that was unhuman, and perhaps more adapt to bringing an alpaca with you. And I don't know, I mean, maybe this is true. Like I could see you adapting to maybe 13,000. Maybe you should go to next trip Everest. I could see if you need to follow up on Peter Burns' legacy next and send Jill as your main Sherpa. Okay, what's your PayPal? We're going to crowdfund right now, Jill. We're going to send you,
you guys,
to Tibet.
Just Venmo me, Jill Ryan Snyder. It's a picture of a cat howling at the moon.
We actually have a guy in the
Nepal who's
had multiple Yetis that wants us to
Jill,
come over.
we can't make it, but you can. And it's up
I've
to
got
you.
the lung capacity to do this.
She's got the lung capacity
it's so
to
funny.
do this. That's right.
Look, I kept telling the guy, look, my Apple Watch just or the day before, was it yesterday afternoon, Matt, where I clocked in like before noon? I clocked in like 55 flights of stairs, just helping the Sherpa guys like go get luggage and stuff. Because I was like, because I usually go on my morning walks. I'm very, conscious of that. And I was like, I gotta get my workout in. And I'm just like kind of hating life because I'm like, it's all uphill.
Yeah.
But no, I love it. I might have been like a goat in a past life.
Yes. But I've seen her
And
in
I
the
mean that
alleyway.
in the most,
yes. Yeah.
the most endearing way. Nothing awful like
chewing on tin
I'm
cans and jumping on top of buckets in the backyard. It's very
like adorable goat, not anything nefarious. But so
greatest of all
so that's the whole Peru trip.
Well, it's not over yet. Like anything could happen. And so wait a second here. So like you have photographs that appear to be a Sasquatch. You've talked to at least 2 witnesses that have had encounters. I mean, the audience really deserves some kind of like witness testimony with an iPhone. I think it's your challenge, at least for the paid members, to give them something. Just one little thing at the airport, just like, oh yes, we saw the strange Peruvian Sasquatch, and it was something. Give us something.
Tobe, are you asking me to do the Daryl Wilson challenge?
Yes.
Where I go into the airport and announce I'm a Bigfoot, have you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Daryl Wilson, the
I
Daryl
will.
Adams, the Daryl Jeter. I don't care, but find a way to do it.
I will do the Daryl Wilson challenge, and I will tell people I haven't seen a Bigfoot, but I will ask
Hmm.
them. But here's the catch: is because we're headed to Machu Picchu, so I'm assuming I can only. We're on a path. We're on a journey. We're
Hmm.
being directed to something amazing. That's
Now, according to my notes here, not only through Brian Forrester and Ron Moorhead and L.A. Marzulli, all three of these gentlemen were on a road trip. I think it was called the Watcher Series. I think part 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. There's a lot of Watcher series. It's directed by L.A. Marzulli. You can find Ron Moorhead
yes.
in it. And they wander the South American desert and they find remnants of old slingshots from biblical times, like just strewn about with skull fragments. If you pictured like a Mad Max scenario, any Indiana Jones except the Crystal Skull one, garbage, they have this whole scene there where they're like rummaging through ancient artifacts, and the conversation basically goes, yeah, these artifacts are everywhere. The grave robbers come in before we can even get to them and put them in a museum, but there's so many of them. And when it comes to the elongated Paracas people skulls, not the cradle boarded people, because remember, if you took a big pound of rice and poured it in a cradle boarded skull, it would all equal out the same. But the real McCoy, the Paracas skulls that have the one suture and the weird 2 little holes in the back of the atlas where the top of the spine is, you pour a bag of rice in that skull, it's like 25% bigger. The eye sockets are bigger, the jaw's
Mm.
bigger. The DNA is different. It comes from the Black Sea. These are red-headed giants from like, you know, near Kosovo, actually, the Black Sea. Um, so very strange stuff. And these skulls, you're headed like into skull country, right? Like they're hidden
Mhm.
everywhere around the city. Like they're just kind of just the skulls, right? As far as I heard, are just kind of like pushed inside one of these megalithic cave structures. So man, oh man, if you could get something on video, just like, oh yes, we have a skull here, and this is a megalithic. I mean, the megalithic things, I'm so excited for you. If you see like these giant megalithic Volkswagen size boulders that have these
Yeah.
little Lego squares in there that are just, you can't even punch a hair through. You can't shine a light. You can't shine a
Oh.
laser through.
Oh yeah. We've seen the old like the Inca walls and
Oh, you
stuff.
did? Okay.
It's like the craftsmanship
Alien.
is better than what you would see today. And we joke and ask like, "Oh, the aliens do this," and it's like, no. It's basically they had it together. They knew what they were doing. Again, sharing knowledge.
Right. It's
It was like a hive mind. I'm not discounting extraterrestrial
mm.
intelligence, but I'm saying for the most part, they the Incas were on top of it.
So you're saying
They knew
like
what
it
they were
was
doing.
like community, not intervention. Like this was nature adaptation. It wasn't nurture from outside source saying this is how you do it. Toy with the DNA this way and make strong people smart. It wasn't that. They don't say star people came down and showed us how to make these, concentric circles to look at planets. They didn't do the, because elongated people look like aliens. Like they don't look human.
Yeah. So we didn't get into those conversations as much with the locals, but I don't know. To be determined. The story continues, but
Okay.
from what we were told and the interactions we had, it was just like I said. Everyone was sharing. It was all about sharing knowledge, and they
Mm.
understood. Like when one tribe would the exam. I'm looking off screen to Brett here. Uh, what were they?
Your
What was Eddie
translator.
talking about? Um, yeah, tell me more in simple terms. But they would meet with tribes for like just across the mountain from the in the jungle, and it's like, okay, what
Mm.
produce? What do you grow here, and
Mm.
how can we adapt it to our and create microclimate?
Mm.
And create a system to grow these things. Like everyone was working together, sharing knowledge.
Is
So if there was something, if there was a group, extraterrestrial making itself known, it was just part of the sharing knowledge. It wasn't this idea of just like people wandering or lost and like, whoa, we are here to inform you what to do. It was like, okay, you've got something, share with us, we'll share with you. But
Mhm.
these seem pretty, from
Mhm.
what we can tell, the Incan culture self-sufficient. They didn't need a lot of guidance.
Did they? Is this the same culture that has the drunken honey, like the power honey on the side of the cliff? You guys know about the? Is it the Incan honey? Like there's a hive on the side of a cliff, and you got to go down, like where you stayed in that awesome Hilton on the side of the hill. Do they have
Oh,
that wild honey?
I know. I think that's more of like a Southeast Asian type thing.
Okay, wrong
Isn't that
country.
Southeast Asia?
I was
I
hoping
mean,
for you.
I mean, at the market we saw honey for sale, but I didn't ask for the
Okay, wrong
mythology or
culture.
the oral
Chime
history
in the
behind it.
chat. I can't read the chat, but if I'm going to the wrong cultures periodically,
Yeah.
public education. What are you gonna
Right.
do?
Let's
Yeah.
create a mythology
Mm.
of the honey, the
Right.
sacred and people. Yes. So, hey, Tobe, just to circle back, I mean, look, South America is awesome. There's a lot to explore, but let's talk about cryptids in Vermont in our most recent video with Noel.
Well, so Christopher Noel has been a known quantity for quite a while. I would say I've probably about 2015 time frame. I started watching him kind of surface on YouTube. I mean, YouTube really didn't take off till around 2012. And so channels started to pop around 13. People started using Vine to go to YouTube, and I don't think Vine's around anymore. I like red vines more
No.
than Twizzlers, by the way, if you ever want to get me something. So definitely way better. But when it comes to Christopher Noel, my first introduction to him was, and we should set the provenance. This guy's like highly educated, right? Like he's a Yale. Is he a doctor
Yeah.
in psychology or psychiatry?
Doesn't he have he has a master's in philosophy from Yale.
Okay.
And just extremely like background, like writing,
Hmm.
journalism, just
He's very
well versed.
careful to say the things that he says, and he doesn't say anything that he doesn't really back up with research or maybe peer-reviewed studies. So he's not just speaking
Mhm.
like me. He's not me at all. Trust me there. But my first experience with him, and I did have an interaction with him online regarding the Al Moon Lab. But he did before that time he had a video that he was touting about of what appeared to be a Sasquatch behind a woodpile, and it kind of went viral. Like everybody was watching this video, and so because he secured that video, and he was basically leaning into the idea. And if Noel, if you're watching here, tell me to go pound sand if I'm wrong. But I think you said something in effect of like leaning into these people that live with the phenomena, something to that effect. And that's where I was headed in 2013, 2012. Like that was the dream. Like, could you find a place that would accept you? The owners would accept you. God, would they let you live there and live with the phenomena? And so that's where we were all kind of like headed, him and I and a handful of others. I still don't understand why that's not talked about. Like that to me is really strange that the Noel theory or the Noel effect isn't something that people aren't leaning onto. Habituators, I think, is the more bandied about term. So he talks a lot about that in this video, but then he starts going in a direction, stage left, with the woo theories and what's actually happening. This back and forth. I'm moving around like Gavin Newsom now. I don't know what's going on. But listen, I'm telling you, Christopher Noel is leaning into the theories of why these things are happening in a undetermined scientific matter. And I don't know if you mentioned the telepathy tapes, um, but in regards to studies like the telepathy tapes, where they're looking at kids with special needs that have psychic powers, this is the new territory that people are explaining the phenomena happening, all around us here. And I think it's great to have a voice like his lean into unsettled science to talk about it. So bravo, Mr. Noel.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I mean, after we interviewed Christopher, he had a new book coming out, exactly cryptid related, but it was called There Is No Veil. And I think it falls in line with what Dr. Simeon Hine talks about in Dark Matter Monsters, and that just basically unifies the idea that everything is connected. You know, There Is No Veil talks about the connection to, I don't necessarily want to say NDEs, but life after death, and being able to connect and communicate with spirit and evidence there is life beyond death. And it just so much of what he talks about echoes what Dr. Simeon Hine talks about in Dark Matter Monsters, and kind of ties into umbrella of that whole other part of the cryptid connection, where
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more at play, the telepathy, the whatever you want to call it, the other spirit play, I
Mm-hmm.
guess you could say.
Well, in the
I mean,
autism, that's his main theory, is that
yes.
kids on the spectrum are mimicking. Well, let's go back. Let me reword that.
Okay.
Sasquatch has adaptations and behavior that are similar to kids that show autism, including things like being fastidious, counting things out,
Mhm.
numerically color coded. I've seen this before. We've kind of all heard about this, but to actually witness it and to work with kids that are um, different abled, this is very similar to what their abilities are. Now, did I know about the psychic phenomena? No, not really. I mean, this is something I didn't really know about. I thought maybe kids had past life regressions and they could remember them. I had no idea that kids on the spectrum were exhibiting psychic ability. I had no idea that this
Mm.
was a thing. Did you?
But a lot of people contact us privately talking about how they were out in the forest or out, camping, and they have a child who's autistic, and they start having, like the child interacting with something, and then they became aware that there was some activity going
Mm-hmm.
on, whether a phones or a site, like things being tossed at them, or like an actual scene. But there was like a connection, like where the child was basically aware, more tuned in to something around the camp.
Mm-hmm.
Brett, were you
I'm gonna try and.
okay? No, okay, no. Yes, he was
Okay.
not. I was like, did I?
Don't
Okay.
crack the whip. We're just having fun.
I have nothing to add.
There was nothing to add. No, we do get comments from like private messages, people saying, this really resonates. Even,
Mm,
just if you stop and read the comments on Christopher Noel's, if you do a deep dive on the comments posted on any of the full length interviews on our channel, a lot of people are resonating with what Christopher has to say, either in their own personal experience or like with children or family members or people they know who are on that is somehow connected to watch or forest person encounter of some sort. So I mean,
Well, and he brings up Snow White Bigfoot. Now, Snow White Bigfoot has been
yes.
in the background as far as like a YouTube star talking about Bigfoot. Like, I think she could give two holy, F's about having subscribers. It's not her deal. She's like fully into the evidence collecting and the interaction collecting, and she's getting results. There's a video out
Mhm.
that Christopher did not mention that you can go through and find. Allie and I tried to find it, and it's Snow White Bigfoot. Now, she's a habituator. She's not autistic, I don't think. but she has activity like Daryl did. And she does like daily stuff. Like she's just, I don't know if she and her spouse are doing this or if it's just her, but the whole family, I think, knows that there's something happening. And I don't know how much of a witness she is, but she did the whole GoPro thing on the backpack and was hiking some trail. And she caught, there's footage of this here, I hope Brett finds it, of a Sasquatch running towards her through the field. And you can see the full extension of the arms for like a frame or half a frame. And it's going like mid cloak. Like I don't just say that easily.
Mm.
You can see it phase into existence. It's half transparent. I mean, I think you can see the head, the shoulders, and the arms move through the brush. And it's just flying in this ungodly like the Flash, right? Like it doesn't make sense. But she caught this, and there's a lot more to this as well. So I'm happy that he mentioned her because maybe she'll kind of come out of her Snow White world and go to a conference and like share it like Autumn Williams' mother would do at conferences, because it's those kind of people that I'm most impressed with because they're thinking out of the box. They don't care about what society thinks. They know what they know. They've got the results, and so that was impressive.
Yeah, and this, is so funny because after Christopher Noel's, interview came out, we started looking into that channel you're just like what was it, Brad?
Snow White.
There was evidence of the prints on her car window, like on the window, and
she had arms on her car
like
window.
arm prints.
Oh.
Yeah,
Prints.
the
Did you
hand.
watch that, Tobe? Did you watch that video?
I know I haven't caught up with her for a long time.
Okay, this was like 3 or 4 years. I'll try and find it and link it in the chat. But she was comparing the arm prints with chimps.
Oh yeah.
And different, gorillas and whatnot, and they were almost exact matches.
Like the arm and hair
Yeah.
striation and like the muscle, like when you
Mm-hmm.
press against glass,
I
the
don't know
muscle
how-
and elbow.
Yeah, I don't know how you would hoax this, and I
Oh,
don't
no.
think that she's that person. You know what I mean? But
No.
I mean, it's striking. It's really striking. Some of the best physical.
Yeah,
I've seen.
She might have the best evidence out there of habituation because she must be retired, I think, because she does this all the time. And I don't know if she's left out a chalkboard. I know that Mike Patterson has done that technique where you're getting names written down, but she's at that level, only she's totally, believable. Everything seems to add up to the real McCoy. And I bet Noel has been out to her area and probably spoken one-on-one with her, and he's not going to vouch for someone who's Fruit Loops. And so go check out Snow White Bigfoot. Look for that cloaking Sasquatch footage. I can't find it. It's down deep in her channel somewhere. I know the sleuths are on here. They can find it readily available. And as I was saying,
please don't.
she speaks for the marginalized community of people that have these incredible contact encounters as habituators. And we just left a conference last week at Mount Hood. And it was about 50-50 mix as far as hard-nosed aper community looking into Newtonian science, relic hominid, if the shoe don't fit you must acquit kind of deal, divergent big toe not existing, compliant gait, all that talk was readily available. I talked to Meldrum at length about the trackway that happened in Cottage Grove, but it was about 50-50 mix. Like there was a fair amount of like people just like no, this is much stranger. And so that was interesting to watch play out because I don't know if they fully expected that. I think they do nowadays when they show up at these conferences. And I'm not saying Snow White Bigfoot is into the paranormal or supernatural, but she's attributing things that make most Bigfooters kind of mess themselves, because she's saying, oh, no, they're like a type of people and they're dealing with my family one-on-one like a neighbor would.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Mount Hood. So last weekend up in Welch's, Oregon, just basically a community adjacent to Mount Hood, Oregon, where it's like Sasquatch Central. I mean, Cliff Museum, North American Bigfoot Center is like not far away. And I mean, gosh, how many, like what Todd Neese used to live just up on the foothills of Mount Hood and had actions going on. And there's ongoing activity reported in Mount Hood. There was a conference and we did, we screened a Flash Beauty Bigfoot Revealed. Great turnout, by the way.
And
And the room was pretty full. And we asked, we're like, has anyone here seen this movie? And we expected them to be like, raise their hands, like, yeah, we've seen it. We're
right,
just,
right. Yeah.
in time to the next
Right.
speaker. One person raised their hands. Other people it was all new to them. So that was really cool. And then the Q&A went on much longer than what was scheduled. But what a great group of people. And just even being like on the vendor floor, like where the speakers has and other people were. Crap, I mean, it was packed. It was a fantastic turnout, and everyone was interacting and mingling. And we didn't get to see any of the other speakers or anything because we had to hop on a flight to Peru. Can you talk about it a little bit more? Because you haven't even told us how your presentation went on Sunday.
Yeah. So it packed out on Saturday pretty good. You guys saw that in the theater. And they were very gracious hosts there. Like they really went out of their way for the speakers. And there was, I gave a presentation on Sunday, but there was this amazing like barbecue after party that they had for everybody, not just the speakers, but they just basically opened up this lodge out by the swimming pool, had burgers, drinks, a live music. It was a full on like legit like summer bash party, beautiful weather. Yeah, it was really cool. And it went late, everybody was stoked. And then the next day got up, gave a presentation. I think I went a little bit long, but that's the way it goes when you talk about crazy stuff. And so we stayed till probably about 1 o'clock. There was a little disagreement the night before between a couple of Bigfooters that could have got interesting. I won't say names, but it got a little spicy out by the smoke deck.
Oh,
there's a little dirt for
can
you. But
Okay.
This is what happens. Like people get passionate about their projects, and people want to be acknowledged for the work that they've done. I get it.
Did you interject some woo
No.
philosophy that threw some people
No,
off, or what?
no. This came secondhand after the fact. I found out. It's just like, oh, I was just out there. I missed all the action. But I did get a story that involves Oak Ridge, which I did not expect. In fact, I was pulled aside, and then I can't say much because I did record a Strange Days, and we'll talk about Strange Days and what's going on with that.
Yeah.
But I did get pulled aside by an old railroad conductor. Like he worked on the railroad but wasn't on the train, so I don't know what that position is. He's one of those guys that would drive a truck on the tracks and then shoot up highway.
Yes.
I don't know what that is. He knew that. He said the name on air, so you'll learn that. I learned a bunch from this guy, but he had some stuff to say, not only about Sasquatch, but he had some stuff to say about the mountains up there and what's really going on. And it's just like, can I put you on camera? He's like, oh no, not what I'm about to say. And I said, so it was another witness, cloaked in the shadows again.
Yeah.
But I got it on tape. He reached out to me afterwards. He wants to go a little bit deeper. That was pretty cool. And then we got back to home, I think about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. You guys at that point were probably already shooting off to Peruvian heaven. And then our worlds kind of collided in the last 24 to 48 hours when I'm trying to figure out what's going on with Google's Dropbox and uploading the latest episode of Strange Days, which people are going to have to wait because we've given it the old college try, and for whatever reason, the upload is not going through the usual methods that it should. However, I don't use the word banger lightly. this is a banger. It's a good one. I think the kids are going to enjoy it. There's a few surprises, especially towards the end, and then we just shot another one yesterday, which is also going to be. You know, when you shoot these kind of videos, and you guys probably look at this too, you don't want to overuse the word synchronicity. And this is something I just recently figured out that I say this word too much. So you don't want to overuse the word synchronicity. So I want to call it like happenstance or layover effect, or what should I call it? Like the Grand Weaver. I don't know. But whatever is happening when you're on a shoot, you're always looking for that kind of like good luck to come. Like, oh my God, this is happening right now. And
Yeah.
yesterday it happened. It happened immediately when we got in the car and we took off to this amazing place called Troll Haven. Go look it up. And so we got some really interesting episodes coming out. Just stay tuned. I think next Thursday, we'll get back on track for the members.
We'll be back. We'll be back on track. Yeah, definitely.
If we have to drive
And,
down to
we'll,
Portland and upload it on your computer, then we'll look at that as an option. But yeah, it was a full week, and I sold out of wood watchers, which is always a good sign. Like people are like, the economy. I'm like, what? I don't see it right now. People are. We took out the ATM. There was no money in the ATM by like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a good sign, right?
Whoops.
People are pulling out cash.
Good.
So
good, because you had a great selection of wood watchers. There's some new variations.
there was.
I had my eye on a couple. Well, maybe if they don't, maybe if these are holdovers.
Yeah, I got like 3 commissions out of the deal. So next time we're down your way,
Nice.
we'll meet some people over at the Danner Boot Store. That's my new drop-off zone. Also,
Perfect.
potential new sponsors. We did approach them and talked to some of the marketing execs there, gave them a business card, and said, you know, we'd look really good in a pair of Danners on camera. It's a good way to start. So
Perfect.
anyway,
Awesome. And I still have in the back of my mind when you talked about Saturday night at the conference, like some passionate sessions that you walked into, heated debates on philosophies. It's like all I can imagine in my head is Dr. Jeff Meldrum throwing the chair across the pool.
No, Jeff was
off.
really. In fact, there was a moment where I came to Jeff's table. You know, here's the deal: is that if you think somebody thinks less of you, you have all these preloaded emotions, and maybe he has that too. And I'm just a guy, and he's like the doctor. So I just like, this is the year to bury hatchets and move on. Like, you know, Cliff and I had some friction going on, but I was just like, let's move on, dude. Like, I'm gonna wear an NABC t-shirt all weekend, just as like I think it's a killer logo, so I wore it.
Don't you feel like after last year, like when we were just at Mount Hood, I came by the first.
That was an episode out of Big Brother.
It was an intervention for sure. But one of the first people I went up to see Cliff. You know, I was like, hi. He was like happy to see me, and we were talking and stuff. Yeah.
I went to Jeff and I sat down beside him and I handed him a track, and one he'd never seen before, because the deal is it's a messy track and no one really wants to look at a big fat 14.5-inch piece of plaster that doesn't look like much. But I knew he would, because he's looking with a different set of eyes at information in the substrate. And we had a pretty interesting conversation about it. And it turned into another conversation. And then I mentioned to him, just like, hey, you know, that they found more London tracks via Scott Violet and his wife, Hannah, which were reported by the Army Corps engineers like a year and a half, 2 years ago now. And they're very similar to the London tracks. Did you know that? And he said, no, I didn't. And I said, well, that's really weird. Like, you should know that. You're the track guy. And so that was surprising. And so we talked about that and how that could be. And we talked about other trackways. And he goes, well, they tried to hoax me in Idaho. And I said, really? I didn't hear about that. There was a whole thing that happened in Idaho. So the thing is that all these guys that spend all their money, I mean, it does cost money, but time is money too, especially if you're leaving your family and you have a business or you're a teacher and you go get hoaxed by some doofus, you know, and the links that these guys will go to now that they have 3D printers, they can just sit there and elongate their foot digitally and, you know, make a 16-inch track out of silicone and go out and fake tracks. This is just, you know, it's totally ridiculous. It's something that's happening. So we bonded over ridiculous people, but anyway, by the end of it, we kind of snuck out the back door and then headed off back to Washington, and it's just been lovely out. And yeah, that's kind of what's going down.
Very cool. Well, I just want to tease. So Brett and I will be back on soil early next week. So we'll be able to get back on track with Olympic Strange Days. And also, let's just kind of tease the next video coming out.
Oh.
That involves one of these legendary that floats around, Mr. Tom Powell.
I'm so excited that you actually said the name because Tom is really the first guy that willingly kind of took me under his wing. He probably saw me as a student because he was a teacher and educator. And he's just so affable and lighthearted about everything. Like, you can't get under his skin because he has no ego. He doesn't have any ego. Like, he's just like, he's kind of like Willy Wonka. I don't know. Like, he's just, he feels like when the guy walks in the room, he just has it. He has that star power, but yet without the ego.
Yeah.
So I've always felt that way about him. The audience feels that way about him when he walks into a room. And I hope he starts doing more conferences. We're going to try to get him to Olympic Strange Days and hang out with us in the woods. That's the goal. But Tom's unpredictable.
He's already committed. Tobe, we asked him on camera.
I know, but I know Tom, he's unpredictable. And I want him that way because you can't nail him down.
Well, then maybe it'll be a situation where you don't hear from him and all of a sudden he repels out of a tree.
That's what I mean. I don't want to promise
plan,
it.
But
I need to like advertise it as though he's some kind of like, you know, ethereal possibility or something like that. Anyway, if you have the chance.
Very much so. Yeah. Very much so. But it was a fantastic interview. It could have gone on so much longer. And I have a feeling that was just the beginning of many interviews with Tom. And just so much knowledge. There's just so much. I just want to put a mic on him and start just.
Well, let's tell the folks here that, you know, one of the bigger pieces of Bigfoot evidence has to do with Tom Powell's idea, and that is the Skookum cast, which Meldrum doesn't own. Only a replica, I believe. The real Skookum cast is here in Washington State. It's owned by a fellow co-worker of Scott Taylor, who has kind of kept it to himself. But without Tom Powell, the Skookum cast would not be. Now, does that show an elk wallowing in the mud here? I don't know. Some people say, no, it shows a Sasquatch. But Tom had the idea, and this is how clever he was. He said, well, why don't we take an apple, or a couple of apples, and we'll stick them right over there in the mud wallow, and they'll be forced to come over there to get the apples. They can't just walk up to the table and take them. And so that's how they got the Skookum cast. It was, according to legend, it was Tom Powell's, you know, mad scientific brain that was coming up with that kind of stuff. And if you, if you ever get a chance to see the Skookum cast, you'd be the judge. But, you know, out of the box thinking reaps grand rewards.
Tobe, in a post-apocalyptic world, there's going to be a Gandalf-style wizard with his staff speaking to Hobbit-type people of years ago. Legend has it, the man named Tom Powell who put the apples across the wallow and the.
This is so a really good stage performance by Jill.
Thank you.
I like it.
It's going into my one-person show.
I like the old English brogue too. That was broken.
Yeah.
Is that how you see all British people? One day. I love it.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Right. Haggis.
And anyone watching right now, you can see more in my one person show that I'll be bringing to a venue soon.
Right.
It won't be for a while,
Right.
trust me. Maybe next year during the Fringe Festival season, we'll see.
I
But,
should make an announcement before we forget here, is that we're moving the launch day because we want to make sure this happens right. So we're moving the launch for our first live show in studio in this bar in Manresa Castle to the first Saturday of June, which is June 1st. It was scheduled for May 3rd, but we want to bring in the staff. We want to celebrate the castle. We want to have a castle off instead of hassle off. We want to have a castle off. And so I really feel like you guys should be here. It's the first Saturday. If you guys showed up with cameras and it was a thing and Mike was feeling better, and we just did like a full-on Saturday Manresa Castle party and brought in the maids, the owner, you know, the people that have stayed here, and give it enough room for the summer to kind of happen. I feel like June is better. And so we're moving it down the road a little bit just because I think we want the first one to be a banger. And so that has yet to be launched on the website, but combining the world of A Flash of Beauty here, I don't know how it will happen, but you know, let's just see.
Flash of Strange Days.
There you go. I like it. I think a Castlehoff is
Castlehoff is good too. It's like, you know, it's like back in the day, crossover episodes like Who's the Boss meets Growing Pains,
oh
like,
my god.
or like Blossom meets
Knight Rider would go to like Little
Different
House on the
Strokes or
Prairie
something.
and go to Walnut
Yeah,
Grove on
yeah.
Knight Rider. Yeah. Right.
The crossover episodes. So yeah, sounds awesome. Gosh, I can't think of. You got anything else, Brett? Are we good? Anything?
What time is it there?
It's 9:50. Almost.
Oh.
We're only like 2 hours ahead. That's the weird thing. We're way far south, but just central time, basically. So.
Wow. Oh, and just for a little inside baseball, we got a visit today over off of Old Eaglemont Road from someone that was in town. Just let Brett know. He said that he was in town, and so he showed up today for a couple hours.
Will Brett know what that means?
Yeah, he does. Relative of.
Can we talk about it off camera?
Talk about it off
I don't
camera.
know what it means.
Just enough mystery to keep the audience interested.
Oh, well, I guess that's all we got on our end, and I will be hitting the pavement, the Peruvian pavement, looking for cryptid reports. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm ready to relocate.
I want an airport interview. I want to see at least some kind of proof of a megalithic something, and then if you can, try to hunt down somebody that has a Peruvian Paracas skull, like in their living room, you know, behind under a blanket or something. I don't know.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best, but yeah, stay tuned. I'm gonna channel my best inner Daryl Wilson and just ask people like what's the most incredible thing you've ever seen? I'll lay it on.
Okay.
Because my Spanish is terrible. And we'll see what we can get.
Okay. That's it for me, folks. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Brett. Have fun, and we'll see you back here next week.
Awesome. Okay, everybody, take care.